This is Ambazonia Calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. Ambazonia Calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoyn Herbert, and I bring revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of Ambazonia and fellow Ambazonians on Ground Zero and across the globe.
Ahead of the first ever informal meeting of its kind by the UN Security Council on the Cameroons, Ambazonian nationalist groups across the diaspora are mobilizing to make known to the world that coexistence of any form with La République du Cameroon is out of the question. I am innocent here.
When I wish that Janan can shoot them for the morning, they leave them for here.
Although the world continues to delay recognition for Ambazonia, the sons and daughters of this great land are making sure that everyone around the world knows that the Republic of Ambazonia exists.
Women for hire. This is the monk from Bali.
To impress upon the president of Cameroon to resign.
He was recently decreed the first of the house slaves in colonial administration of Paul Biya.
This is Veronique Vetimfe.
Party has offered the services of our national chairman here present, Ntumfoyn, as one of the best candidates for negotiation.
Today is Sunday, the 12th of May 2019, and this is edition number 049 of Ambazonia Calling. It is Mother's Day. From my native comb, this is the world-renowned Jang music. This is to you, all the mothers out there, wishing you Happy Mother's Day. The voice of great female activism here, calling on the men folk to keep the women and the girls out there in school, getting the education they need to be great mothers. It is one of those tough days. I've been down with a cold, but there's nothing tough that should stop Ambazonians. Not now, not at this moment of this revolution. So I'm coming to you from out of Dayton, Ohio, and we're going to get this program rolling. We begin right away with our news summary for the week. Here is Innocent here.
Ambazonians are counting down and waiting with abated breath the upcoming informal meeting of the United Nations Security Council on the crisis in the Cameroons. Ahead of the meeting tomorrow, Monday, May 13th, Ambazonian nationalist groups across the diaspora are mobilizing to make known to the world that coexistence of any form with La République du Cameroon is out of the question. Whereas throngs are hoped to confluence at the United Nations headquarters, New York City, by the park on 47th Street and First Avenue, there is concern over what will really be going on inside and who will be speaking for Ambazonia. U.S. House Resolution 358, still a draft at this time, has equally caught the attention of Ambazonians across the board. The draft resolution was submitted Tuesday to the first session of the 116th Congress by Congresswoman Karen Bass and co. Notwithstanding demands made on the government of Cameroon, observers say the current resolution does not go far enough and calls on Ambazonians to actively work with their respective congressmen and congresswomen to make sure that the final resolution reflects the wishes and aspirations of Ambazonia, not what lobbyists of the Republic of Cameroon and its client want. Video has gone viral of an Ambazonian American introducing herself at a recent U.S. Navy graduation as originally from Bafut in Ambazonia. Ambazonians the world over are praying and hoping that curiosity got the better of President Donald Trump, who was in attendance as specialists at Wontum introduced the youngest African nation, Ambazonia. It was and remains a moment of joy and bravery for Ambazonians and a clear warning shot of how much pride Ambazonian Americans of all walks of life, including the professional U.S. military, have for motherland. Ambazonians and Ambazonia Calling salute and congratulate you, specialist at Wontum of Bafut in MEZAM State.
The insurrection that started with what has come to be known as Amber Boys. They took up arms, they started fighting the police, fighting security forces, destroying property, state property, sometimes personal property of people, and the government could not let this happen. And so security forces came in, the military also intervened in order to keep the peace. And they've been doing a great deal of work in trying to bring peace to the area.
Cameroon's colonial house slave Prime Minister Dion Ngute has rounded up a visit of the northern zone of Ambazonia. Wielding a giant peace plant in hand like protesters had at the beginning of the revolution when they were sprayed with bullets from helicopter gunships, Premier Dion Ngute, dressed in an oversized traditional outfit, competed for titles with Master Biya upon introducing his errand self as Chief and Fawn, a reminder of Biya's collection of titles as Fawn of Fawns.
Even na conference, we go hold a conference. We go discuss all we think them. But that's what say Cameroon na one country. No be so one make Cameroon divide. Yes, power right now one country.
Dion Ngute said he was on errand to lead Ambazonian youth, whom his administration had forced into bushes as they fight to defend homeland and stay alive, that Biya now has jobs for them.
We tell with the picking them where they there for bush, say me they no stay there. Snake, it kill them. Mosquito, it kill them. Bullet, it kill them.
In disregard of recommendations by the UN, the EU, the US, among others, for dialogue without preconditions, Dion Ngute pleaded with groups of women hired for the occasion to invite their sons and husbands to dialogue on anything but cessation.
He has told me to reassure them that the dialogue they have been asking for, if they want, as they want, a dialogue which will look at a number of issues, he is prepared to hold that dialogue. All he's looking for is people who can be representative enough to dialogue. And he has said that with the exception of separation or secession, every other topic can be discussed.
Reactions caught on camera and shared online consistently show resistance and pushback from civil parties, religious leaders, traditional authorities across Northern Zone to the message of which house slave Prime Minister Dion Ngute has been bearer. Whereas his Royal Highness Fund and Welfare of MENCHUM lamented the impact of no schools for children who have stayed home for the past 3 years, he was also swift to point out that heavy-handedness of Dangote's colonial government to demands for reform. At a larger forum in another setting in Banda Thursday, Monsignor Patrick Lafont reminded the colonial premier that bishops of the Episcopal Conference had long made suggestions that were ignored, and whatever the offer now is too little too late. Other reactions stated that the distance from the colonial presidency or prime ministry to the dungeons of Condemn in Yaoundé, where abducted Ambazonian leaders are holed up, is a lot shorter than the trip to Ambazonia to discuss with known sympathizers of the regime. You are listening to Ambazonia Calling, your space for educated news analysis, informed opinions and commentary towards the recognition of a free, independent Ambazonia. I am Inefficient. Stay with us.
We're keeping Innocent Chair for the second part of our news wrap-up for the week.
The Social Democratic Front, SDF, has come out campaigning and begging vigorously for its federalism-biased chairman, Ntumfoyn, to be one of the negotiators between La République du Cameroon and Ambazonian restorationists who have roundly rejected whatever Ntumfoyn is offering at this time. Addressing a crowd of reporters following a meeting with Cameroon's premier, SDF top brass said they had taken note of the message from Colonial Yaoundé and had equally made a list of demands that would engender dialogue.
There are two sides to the issue, what we take from the Prime Minister and what we give him. The point we take home from the Prime Minister is that the head of state has accepted to talk on condition that there's no discussion of secession. That we've retained. And we've also retained that he is on the path of a political solution as opposed to the military solution which, he has been on so far. Those are what we retain from the Prime Minister. The message the party has given the Prime Minister, there are four sides to the message. The first point is that we are asking for an immediate bilateral ceasefire. That must be the first point. The second point is that we are asking for an immediate release of all political prisoners, all prisoners of war. They should be released as a condition for peace. The third condition is we're asking that a mediator be put into place that will go between the warring parties, the Ambazonian forces, and the government to negotiate. The party has offered the services of our national chairman here present, Ntumfoyn, as one of the best candidates for negotiation, for serving as the mediator. On the same score, we have been asking that observers, independent observers, be put in to watch the peace process, that they watch the peace process once the ceasefire has been put into place, to make sure that both sides are respecting the ceasefire all the way down to the negotiations. After the negotiator, the fourth point we are asking is that there be a structured dialogue. Which dialogue? It must be a structured dialogue, not on Twitter, not a large debate or whatever, but structured, where the mediator will be going to, and at the end of it, there will be a document that will either get legislative cover through the assembly or whatever way, that will be binding. And which after that now you can put into place peace and reconciliation.
The saga between authentic South Zone chiefs and colonial authorities of Southwest region has been ramped up over the last week by new rifts. Just as many more chiefs of the Southwest Chiefs Conference support their conference against infamous May 20th celebrations, La République du Cameroon has infiltrated the ranks with its divide and rule policy. In the course of the week, the presumptive paramount chief of BOYO, Minnesota resident and absentee chief Dr. Esuka Endele called the decision of the majority of the Chiefs Conference as misguided. His Majesty Nchie Mandenge, Secretary General of the Chiefs Conference, reminded the world and citizens of FAKO that neither colonial governor Okalia nor his subordinates precede their ancestry and culture, thus renewing calls for a total boycott of the May 20th activities, no matter the cost, including open threats from the certificate-thieving Lord Mayor of Buea, Patrick Ekema. The death toll continues rising in Ambazonia even as President Biya of Cameroon talks about forgiveness without pulling back his genocidal forces.
Harmless civilian that have been killed today in the Qatar by the terrorist force of the Republic of Cameroon.
In Mutengene, southern zone, last Monday, pictures circulated on social media of the lifeless body of a young girl whose breast had been razored off by Biya forces. According to the story online, she barely stepped out of her house when she was picked up by the brutish military for no reason. Eyewitnesses say there were signs she had been raped, executed, and then mutilated. As well, 6 more Ambazonians were randomly shot and killed in Ikata, according to a video shot and distributed Thursday.
Harmless civilian that have been killed today in the Qatar by the terrorist force of the Republic of Cameroon.
Up in the northern zone, the corpses of 2 innocent civilians were discovered in Mendankwe on Wednesday. It is alleged that the local police arrested them at 9 a.m., were then transported in a nearby bush where they were beaten and slaughtered.
I wish that Janan can shoot them for the morning. They leave them for here. Now, so we don't come, then discover and we hear the gun holler. We say, we can't look them. They carry them from their motor, then bring them. Come just move them, shoot them, beat them, then they shoot them. Leave them for here. So we showed one for the wall, make the wall see them.
In the meantime, Sisiko Ayuk Tabe and his peers, abducted from Nera Hotel in Nigeria last January 2018, have hand-penned a manifesto defining minimum terms for negotiations with La République du Cameroon. The document makes clear that the only compromise is independence for Ambazonia, without which they and every Ambazonian is ready to die fighting for an independent nation. Finally, a man whose name and statue had become synonymous with civil protocol at the colonial president in Yaoundé, Martin Belinga Ebutu, has died. He died Tuesday after a protracted illness in Switzerland. Innocent Chair, Ambazonia Calling.
What Cameroon has done to us, I want you never to forget. The pain they have brought to bear on this generation, I want you never to forget. Not out of hate, but so that the next generation will remember and make sure they do the things they are supposed to do, never to go through this again.
I will continue to play my part to ask the people of Southern Cameroon to take their revolution into their hands and continue the fight to liberate themselves.
I'm sorry to say, because of France's policies in Africa, in French Africa, the state of La République du Cameroon do not have any pressure on them to find a way to resolve this issue, because they are always thinking that no matter what happens, France will always be there to give them coverage.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner of the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until you have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling.
Since the days of John the Baptist, the kingdom of God suffered violence. Let the violent one takes it by force. It's your underground king. Boom. You the cry, about what the cry. Don't tire, about what why.
Women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. About what they crying, crying. We the crying. Not free me, women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. We the crying. Not free me, women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. We the crying. Not free me.
Sick and tired of this like Republic, una free. Amango today inside pay, you know the free. We president on the side say all my mafia. Grand ambition, fuck that slogan, no yay. Presido, the pay jaga jaga. Una take all till the we for scatter. They need 102 students for send address. Una select 2 Anglophones, escape address. Bia, young, vision, treason. Escape will know why man show BBC there for prison. They don't tell all we then start for colors Anglophones. Fuck up the government, we ain't tools. Minister for communication, no fit talk good English. Southern Cameroon independence, that's my wish. No good third roads, no seaports, no light, no water, no airports. President, you overget fake promises. Wait till happen, failing us, you bring us diseases. But men are the cry, we are the ask why. You don't come for that chair, you don't go shake, you go die.
Women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. About what they crying, crying. We the crying. Not free me, women are the crying, crying. We are the crying, crying. We the crying. Not free me.
There is more evidence of the panic that has hit at the heart of the colonial regime in Yaoundé. They are doing everything now to prevent even the National Human Rights Commission from laying out the details of the genocidal violence unfolding in Ambazonia, the horror and the horrendous human rights violations that are happening in Ambazonia right now. And the regime is doing this in plain sight. They're doing it so anyone can see. This week, for instance, with television cameras ruling and the president of the National Commission of Human Rights, Mr. Chimuta Banda, delivering a speech, the vice president of the commission, who happens to be a faithful of the colonial regime in Yaoundé, just interrupted to prevent him from laying out the details of the human rights violations, especially when he was calling out for an end to the war, for the regime to end the war in Ambazonia. His vice president and other members, French-speaking members of the commission, decided it was time to interrupt them because their job on this national commission happens to be promote human rights violations. That is the kind of sickening regime that governs from out of Yaoundé. A regime that needs to be taken down and taken out by the entire world for the people of the Cameroons and the people of Ambazonia especially to survive.
Welcome to our special interview segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out.
There are Sundays like this when you are just in a very happy place, when you have Barrister John Frusso and Abdul Karim Ali unmasking the devils of La République on the Pan-African debate. This is the kind of programming that every Ambazonian has to study in order to pass the GCE of this revolution. I'll let you listen to these great Ambazonians on the Pan-African debate. They substitute for the Devil Unmasked this Sunday.
I now believe President Trump that the Human Rights Commission in Geneva is made up of human rights violators and that they are all corrupt.
Why do you say that?
Because, let me finish. Because that is the position of the United States. That's why they pulled out of the Human Rights Commission. And let me tell you, you cannot come to Cameroon to talk about human rights. You were invited by the president of Cameroon. He gave you directives as to who you are going to see. You met everybody except the victims. There's no reaction from the victims. You met all the ministers, as indicated by your friend Paul here. You met some propped up civil society people, like they call them civil society, but Kawala and Akeremona. Did you meet any victim? Not to my knowledge. And I read very carefully her conclusions after leaving this country. Her conclusions are much more to the corner of her invitee. If you read it very carefully, you will find out that Michelle Bachelet did not come here to really know the truth about human rights. I hope she had the facts before coming. Otherwise, as far as America is concerned, she will not be able to put forth that kind of report that I read. Because Cameroon is a member of the United Nations Human Rights Commission in Geneva. And Cameroon is not the only human rights violator that is a member. Most of them are human rights violators. And she's chairing it. And she came here at the invitation of one of the human rights violators, Mr. Paul Biya. And her report, I don't want to go into it detailing. From my reading of it, is geared towards helping this government. How can she, after several years of killing and maiming and burning down of villages and so on, trust that Mr. Biya will work with them to solve the Human Rights Commission, human rights atrocities, which have already been committed? How is that going to happen? So, if you ask me, I'm not very sold to her visit to Cameroon. All I know is that the satellite imageries are there. No matter what anybody says, the whole world knows what's happening in the southern Cameroons. The killings, the burning of schools, the burning of people's homes, and recently the kidnapping of people.
Yes, that's
they will tell you that the Amber boys are the ones kidnapping. That is a fallacy, because the boys that are organizing the kidnapping, 2 of them were caught, and they were able to tell the world the truth. So let's watch and see what happens.
Let's talk about the reaction of the government immediately after she left, because we saw the president's tweets just a couple of days
Yes, you're talking about the forgiveness and so on.
Yes, most people said probably
who is he tweeting to? Is he tweeting to his people, the Cameroon people, or to the Ambazonians as he has killed?
No, that's once he wrote in English.
Let me answer. Let me suppose that he's talking to Ambazonians. What about the more than 10,000 people that have been slaughtered by this man? Is he asking the forgiveness from them? What about those who have lost property, houses, beginning from Victoria to Kumbu to Kambe? What kind of forgetfulness and forgiveness that you will be asking from a people whom you have heard? You have not even started to right the wrongs. The war is still on. You are still killing. Just as early as yesterday, there were killings in Bamenda. There were killings in Dop. There were killings in Danso. There were killings in Awing. There were killings in Momedankwe. There were killings in the south, in the southern zone. You kept moving troops into LEBIALEM, but LEBIALEM remains your burial ground. Keep doing that.
Thank you very much, Barrister. Now, Mr. Abdul Karim, what was your take about the report that the human rights chairperson wrote after she left from Cameroon?
Right, I'd like to begin by praising God and ask Him to send His blessings upon His prophets and righteous men and women who've lived. And of course to all Southern Cameroonians and my Muslim brothers and sisters who are undertaking their fast in the month of Ramadan, to Senior Barrister. to my brothers and sisters in the diaspora, and to you, Emmanuel, and the rest of the staff here. It's such a disgrace that a woman of that caliber with that office would act the way she did. I mean, if you want to solve a problem, you need to use the right method. You can't use the wrong formula and expect the right method. You can't want to head to Bamenda and you start moving towards Yaoundé. No, you need to turn towards Konsamba. If not, you arrive at the wrong destination. You come to talk about human rights. I would expect this woman to ask herself before she came here, but just like Senior Barrister said, she came here upon the invitation of the oppressor. Definitely she even has an itinerary, how to operate, and exactly who to meet. So if you come, you don't know the problem, because it seems this woman doesn't know the root cause of the problem. If she knew the root cause of the problem, then she will go where the problem is. Southern Cameroonians and Southern Cameroonians alone decided to join La République du Cameroon. The problem is not that of marginalization. Those are the symptoms of the problem. It's not that of second-class treatment. Those are symptoms of the problem. The problem is the non-decolonization of Southern Cameroons as opposed to Resolution 1608. If you understand that, then you see why the people rose up. And then you ask yourself, what has happened? Madam, this is what has happened. Madam Michelle is her name, right? Number one, taking us back just to the last 3 years, because it has started. Day one, soon as that proposition came from Sir Philipson that we were not economically viable, this is why they won't give our independence, that is the day the revolution started. Dr. Endele opposed it. He said, you can't ask us to do one of those two, because we just came from Nigeria. Quoting him, Nigeria is a deep blue sea, and La République de Cameroon is a blazing fire. Don't forget they were killing Bamileke people like dogs. That is the day it started. So coming back to these last 3 years, Atang and G. Paul, after our lawyers, the most important people besides our religious leaders in our society, those who interpret for us the constitution of the country, after they were beaten by boys whom we collect money and give as taxes for them to wear uniforms and buy guns, after they were beaten and molested, and teachers. Atang and G. Paul comes to Bamenda on the 8th of December 2016 to say that there was no problem. And I saw him with John Gute in Bamenda. He said there was no problem. On that day they killed Akum Julius. We got angry. Madam, first of all, there was an internet cut down for 1 month. Later on for 3 months altogether. We came out with peace plans. Madam, we were beaten and thrown into jails all over the country. And 200 and plus were killed on the 22nd of September 2017. Upon that, we decided to restore our independence. On that day, we had airships with mounted machine guns killing people considered to be citizens. The numbers were so outstanding that there's so much such that we can't know, because later on, mass graves were discovered. But before that, what happened? They fooled us again to create what you call a consortium. They fooled us to bring our lawyers, civil society, teachers all together, that they wanted to talk. They talked for 3 days, and on the 17th of January 2017, that is the day I buried anything called federalism. This is what I asked my brothers who talked to me about federalism. Wasn't it enough for you what happened on the 17th of January 2017? They buried that. They kill our brothers and sisters and they don't want us to talk about it. If you open your mouth, you're taken to Yaoundé. Some were taken to Yaoundé, some were taken to Boya, to Bafoussam, some have disappeared. Oh yeah, I have a cousin who is disappeared. We don't know where he is. Killing upon killing, and they started raising our villages. Today we count over 300 villages raised. With my mother and grandmother and grandfather. When I say my mother, every Southern Cameroonian mother is my mother. They have been incinerated in homes. We have refugees in Nigeria languishing without food. We have our brothers and sisters in the forest. Now we have rainstorms and windstorms. They are all in the forest under these circumstances. I think that report was short of everything. That report was a camouflage, And this is why I respect the United States of America. You see, when Trump says he's pulling out from this Security Council nonsense, then the human right, then you understand him. And doesn't it beg the question for you that why would Bia invite this lady and stop the Human Rights Watch personnel that want to come independently to find out what is up? So that is on the side of the government. But the woman, for her to come and stay in Yaoundé without as much as going to Bamenda, Boya, Kumba, and seeing, she doesn't need to talk to people. She should go and see the barbarism of the military on the streets.
There's insecurity, that's why she cannot travel.
By whom? By the military. And well, insecurity, that's why she cannot travel, and she's reporting security. It doesn't make sense. It's a fallacy. So I think that report doesn't reflect what is on the ground. I think the United Nations need to send some other person. They need to send, not upon Bia's invitation, to come down and talk to those that are the victims. Look, I'm not talking about so-called Southern Cameroonians or Anglophones living in Bamenda and Yaoundé. They don't know shit about what is going on down there. You don't read suffering on papers. You feel it. So to understand what it is, you go talk to who feels it. Right?
Barrister, let's talk about the reaction of the government in general right now. People are feeling that they are a little bit more open now because of the reactions we've been seeing this past day since the United Nations came to Cameroon. Maybe they are willing now and they're preaching peace, talking about peace and calling for dialogue. So probably things are changing gradually.
I will not call it that they are open now. They are panicking. Let me tell you why. All the prime ministers that have gone through this crisis have been to Bamenda, and they will going to Kumba and to Boya. They are panicking. Let me tell you, if Mr. Bia is listening to international community, he will not send Diongote to Bamenda to say he will negotiate on everything except separation. We are not putting precondition. The international community says dialogue without precondition. They have put their own precondition. And who do they think they are dealing with? I am informing Mr. Bia and his prime minister that the Southern Cameroon would not negotiate anything other than the terms of separation. We will come to the negotiating table without precondition. But you should know that we are coming to negotiate conditions for separation. All this running around and making this because, one, the Security Council is meeting on Monday. And that brings me to one thing. I'm calling on all Ambazonians living in the United States and Europe, find your way to New York on the 13th. And in your numbers, to let the United Nations Security Council see you and your faces. You're not going there to laugh. Please. You are going there for business. Whatever comes out of the United Nations Security Council is what is going to make or mar us. So you better find a way to get to New York. Now, what I'm saying is that if not of the United Nations Security Council, Mr. Bia would not be running up and down now talking about I'm going out to negotiate, I'm going out to do this, and say everything is on the table except separation. Now he's calling it separation. It used to be secession. Now it's separation. Listen, he's borrowing our words. We will talk separation on the negotiating table, but we are coming to that negotiating table with an open mind. We are not putting any precondition. You can go ahead and put your precondition telling us that you will not talk separation terms. Everything is on the table. Everything, Mr. Bia, including the 57 years of the destruction of our infrastructure. 57 years of destruction of taking our resources and developing your country with it and turning us into second-class citizens. We will talk all that on the negotiating table. We are going to talk about the root causes of the present war. We have gone through crisis, to conflict, and war. When you were declaring war on the 30th of November, you didn't think that we will be able to face you up to now. For 3 years, we have resisted and will continue to resist you. As I said before, I've said it on this platform, I've said it all over the place. We will fight to the last man standing. And let me tell you, for now, you are still drilling oil in the Gulf of Guinea, our oil. You are still behaving with impunity, and you can afford to say, forget and forgive. Are you asking those that you have killed, more than 10,000, are you asking those people that you burned their houses and they got burned in it, our fathers and our mothers? From whom are you asking forgiveness? If you are asking forgiveness from your own people, well, Cameroonians, whom they voted somebody as president, and you stole the victory, and now you don't know what to do with the hot potato in your hands and you're asking for forgiveness, that doesn't concern us. It doesn't concern me, as I've said it. I am a Southern Cameroonian, an Ambazonian. Can go to places.
Barrister, most people are saying the English-speaking, those in the Anglophone areas are actually fighting this crisis because of the property, the resources they have, and that's why they want to separate. Is that the real reason?
What competition? With whom? No. The British sold us to the French for I don't know, 20 million pounds, and claiming that we were poor. I have a friend who told me a story about how a British parliamentarian was asking us, what is the contribution of the Southern Cameroons to the GDP of Cameroon? The answer was between 60 and 70%. He said, you see, you cannot leave Cameroon because you want to make Cameroon a fair state. Cameroon will never be a fair state because they have their own resources. We have allowed Cameroon for 57 years, no interruption, no fighting, nothing. You've taken the oil, you've destroyed a marketing board, you've destroyed Cameroon Bank, you've destroyed PowerCam, you've destroyed Santa Coffee, you've destroyed all these institutions, you've destroyed the infrastructure, you have not built one single road that Ahijo left or the British left, you have not rebuilt. What are we talking about? We are not in competition with anybody. We will fight to restore, we are already restoring it, our independence. And if you want to negotiate, come to the negotiating table without preconditions, like the international community has told you. But if you don't want to come, we are not forcing you. Continue to fight, continue to kill us. You are doing that. But you know what? For 3 years, you have not been able to subdue us. Keep on.
So I turn back to you, Mr. Karim. Let's talk about the tweet of the president. Like, what was your reaction when you? Because no matter what happens, people always say when somebody asks us to forgive, even though he did not come out plain to say the Anglophones should forgive him. Most people have interpreted it because he wrote in English. We know he was writing French because that's his breed. But this time around, probably people interpreted it as him writing in English. Probably he's calling on those in the English-speaking regions to forgive and forget, even though he did not say he is asking for forgiveness.
He actually, they did it for him, those enablers around him. He cannot write English. Well, so, this is it. I assume Cameroon, by and large, is a Christian country. Mm-hmm. And Cameroonians say they are Christians. Southern Cameroonians are Christians. And we also have Muslims. And I have my senior barrister here, and there's one on my left. We know that all the law that we have today, the breeding place of it is the Bible and the Quran. Mm-hmm. Correct. I'm surprised that when it comes to this Cameroon, when it comes to law, the spirit of it, everybody remove their gloves, especially the government of Bia. Where, please show me a single place in the Bible where God says, kill people and then ask for forgiveness and you'll be forgiven. Christians are fond of putting that in the lips of Jesus, simply because they have not read Jesus carefully. Now let me, biblically, let's see what the Bible says. Isaiah chapter 1, verse number 17. God is telling us that stand for the right thing. Seek for justice. Stand for those who are fatherless. And rise and fight for the widows. Seek for what? Justice. So Christians will tell you, oh, that's the Old Testament.
Definitely, that's the Old Testament.
But according to you, let's ask Jesus if that is the Old Testament. So Jesus answers the question, and he was asked actually those things of the old. So he says, Matthew chapter 5 verse number 17 to 20, think not that I've come to change the law or the prophets. I've come not to change but to fulfill them. And I'm telling you, till heaven and earth pass, not an iota or a tittle shall by anyone pass from the law. And anyone who teaches others not to obey the law, and he himself does not obey the law, shall be least in the kingdom of heaven. And those who obey the law and ask others to do, shall be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Verily I say unto you, unless your righteousness exceeds those of the Pharisees and scribes, you shall by no wise enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says, unless you're better than the scribes and Pharisees. How can you be better without observing the law? Look, the New Testament falls apart without the Old Testament. You cannot build anything unless you start from the law. The law is the core, all right? But Jesus Christ himself, what does he tell you? Matthew 5:30. Keep on reading this Sermon on the Mount, the most important part of Jesus' teaching. He says, if your right hand will cause you to sin, cut it off. It is better to go to heaven with one part of your body away than to carry all the parts into hell. So we're cutting La Republic off. He continues, Matthew 23:23. He's talking about the woe statement. Woe be unto the scribes, for they focus on the minimal things and they forget the major things. Oh, you hypocrites, you should have done both, holding the minimal things and focusing on the major things. The major thing I say unto you, which you've missed, justice and mercy. You want to straight at the gnat, but you're ready to swallow the camel. That is enough with the Bible. We're done with Bia when it comes to all these things. The Quran is very clear on it. In chapter 4 of the Quran, verse 135, Allah says, you should stand for justice, even if it be against yourself, your father, your mother, and your kin. Stand for justice. Allah is your witness. So, justice first, look, and then you come to logic. One is a product of the other. Peace is the product of justice. Unless someone wants to tell me that you need peace to get justice. No, what you need is justice. So Mahatma Gandhi says real peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice. So look, who is Bia asking forgiveness? It doesn't work that way. And the black race, we've made a mistake of forgiving and forgetting the white people. A Muslim and a Christian, when it gets to the wars, we may forgive. We are not obliged. By the scriptures I've given you, we are not obliged. We may, but we will never forget. We will not forget murderers. In the heart of the law in your Bible, we have 613 laws in the Old Testament. The crux of the matter is the 10 Commandments. God took the pains to write it himself. He gave Moses. Moses came back, got angry because the people had carved the calf and they were worshiping it. He broke it. God took the pains to do what? To write the second tablet. Why? Because it's important. One of them is, thou shalt not kill. So the Quran makes it more elaborate. Chapter 5 verse 32. Allah says, any human being who kills another human being, except it be that that human being had committed murder. It means you killed my father, I take revenge. Unless for purpose like that, it's as though you've finished the entire humanity. Who started the killing in La Republic? We are not obliged. But if we may, we cannot forget. You know why? If you forget, they will do it again. We cannot. Who is Bia asking for forgiveness? The day he did that tweet, at least 25 people were killed in the northern zone and 16 in the southern zone, that very day. His military are still there talking to us, rudely in French, extorting money from pregnant women going to the market in French, arresting in French, torturing in French. I don't understand this kind of fallacious action. You're asking for peace and forgiveness. No, I think that Mr. Bia is prepping to run. And you have the permission to run, sir, but you are going to be caught up with. But we are not looking any back. Our focus is there, but truly and really, I will not forget these people who have roasted my parents alive in the houses. I will say they should fizzle off. And when I'm ready to gym, they can meet me in the ring.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abdul Karim.
This is Ambazonia. One nation, one soul, one people. Sacrificing, bleeding, and yes, dying if need be. until we kick the colonialists out and enthrone a government of the people in Buea.
When you have the wise ones with you, it is always best to turn to them for advice and good counsel. That's exactly what our friends at Equinox TV did. They turned to Honorable Justice Aya Paula Bine to ask him a few questions about what exactly he sees Honorable John Gute doing at this moment.
Prime Minister is moving and meeting people. He says his doors are open. He will meet people, peace-loving Cameroonians, to discuss and chart the way forward. If we sit one-on-one with you today, Lord Justice, what will you be telling him as a way out of this crisis?
I wouldn't even waste my time going to sit with him. I have said, and I'm repeating, that Ambazonia is composed of two groups of people. The people on the territory and the people outside. Until they discuss with these two groups together, it is a waste of time, a waste of energy, a waste of resources. You cannot be dialoguing with peace-loving people. They are peace-loving, there is no problem. What is the topic of your dialoguing with them? You only dialogue with those who have a conflict, who are in a situation of conflict with you. So to talk about dialoguing with peace-loving Cameroonian in itself is a contradiction in terms. You cannot be dialoguing with somebody with whom you have no problem. Because the essence of the dialogue is to find common ground. Either you find common ground or you disagree and you go your separate ways.
It started like a joke and I smiled. From Meme to Momo, we said no violence. Now I know not how to smile, 'cause my loved ones are gone. There is no place to call home. Our homes have been burnt. I am homeless in my homeland. There is no place to call my home. Homeless, homeless, homeless in my homeland. When are we going to have a dialogue? We have buried more than enough. Nothing heals the past like time. When are we going to have a dialogue? We've been marginalized enough. You may fool some people sometime. You cannot fool them all the time. Homeless, homeless. I am homeless in my home land.
You don't have to be a soothsayer as an Ambazonian to understand, to suspect that some monkey business must be going on between the United Nations, maybe even other international organizations, and the regime of Paul Biya in the Cameroons. The monk from Ibali Kumato has been digging up exactly what's going on, and ahead of the demonstration at the United Nations on Monday, here is a shocking series of findings that we have made here at Ambazonia Calling.
Here at Ambazonia Calling, we have been very closely following, unmasking and decrying the collaboration and close coordination between colonial Cameroon and the United Nations resident mission in Yaoundé. We have noted the fact that the United Nations has taken sides in favor of the annexationist regime in Yaoundé and has manufactured groups of women specialized in lamentation, whom the United Nations resident representative in Yaoundé has tried to weaponize. It is to this group that Sally Mbumwe from Nkambe, the woman with the moon head who was at the DC All Southern Cameroons conference and was spotted this week alongside the women providing support to the Prime Minister of the colonialists during his visit to Bamenda. We want to be absolutely clear that the UN resident representative in Yaoundé is the one member of the international community who went on national television to call for the creation of such women's groups. The job these women have been hired to perform is to blame Ambazonians for the war and the massacres and raise the cries for peace to such a fever pitch as to ensure that the calls for peace completely muffle or drown out all calls for justice and for the restoration of our independence. When these women's groups meet with Ambazonians, as they did during the DC conference, they blame Ambazonians for the war which Mr. Biya declared. And when they meet with Governor Lele Lafrique in Bamenda or with Prime Minister Dion Ngute, they praise the colonialists for working for peace. There is something common between these groups of women and Colonial Prime Minister Dion Ngute. Before he was decreed Prime Minister, Dion Ngute led a mission to the UN in New York last year. During the mission, he met, among others, with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in New York. The contents of the memo prepared by Dion Ngute once back from New York and transmitted to the tyrant Biya was leaked. In the memo, Dion Ngute reassured the dictator of Yaoundé that the UN Secretary General had pledged to use his good offices to support the Biya regime. Sali Mboué, whom some have intentionally mistaken this week for Sali Likowo of the Federation of Southern Cameroonian Women's Organizations, is one of the women for hire that the UN resident mission in Yaoundé has been funding. At the time of Sali Mboué's trip to Washington, D.C., the reason was not the leader of the organization who came, was because she was at another event in Nigeria on behalf of the Biya regime. With support from the United Nations, she was in Nigeria lobbying the Buhari government, lobbying the West African Bloc, ECOWAS, and UN agencies in Nigeria to close their eyes to any sympathy they may have for Ambazonia and work more closely with Yaoundé in illegally renditioning refugees to the dungeons of Kondinge prison.
Let me stop you there briefly, the monk, to find out exactly what is it that Ambazonia Calling has found out with respect to what is going down before the United Nations on Monday, and what is the link between this group of women and what's going down before the United Nations on Monday.
It is this same group, engineered by the United Nations and sponsored by the same, who performed 2 weeks ago in front of Colonial Governor Lele Lafrique. On Friday, Sali Mboué led a herd of her mourners for hire to the gates of the northern zone to perform like the women of Jerusalem crying for Jesus Christ on his way to Calvary. Like Jesus Christ to the women of Jerusalem, Ambazonia Calling must tell the women and their sponsors that they should not cry for Ambazonia. Ambazonia knows that it wants independence and will settle for nothing less. What they should cry for is for the United Nations, which has clearly sold its soul and mandate in exchange for golden statues or golden bribes. What the UN resident mission is doing from Yaoundé is no doubt blessed by New York, and it is a shame. Until last week, New York could have claimed that it was not accomplice and hoped to get away with it. That is no longer possible. When the United Nations meets tomorrow Monday to discuss the war in Ambazonia, guess who will be seated on a panel speaking on behalf of Ambazonians? Take a wild guess. Anybody? Surprise, surprise. Of all the people that could have been chosen to speak on our plight before the session that will be held Monday, the 13th of May 2019, the UN resident mission in Yaoundé made sure that Ambazonia will not be represented by any of its well-known leaders. The UN resident mission in Yaoundé made sure that the person speaking in the name of Ambazonia on the panel in New York tomorrow is a certain Esther Omam Njomo, who happens to be none other than the President General of the Group of Mourners for Hire. The same Esther Omam Njomo who was lobbying Nigeria and ECOWAS on behalf of colonial Cameroon when Salim Bumwe, who was trying to blame Ambazonians for the war during the conference in Washington, D.C. As in 1961 when the UN violated its own charter, when the UN decided not to respect the views of the vast majority of our people demanding independence as adopted by the 1959 All-Party Conference in Menthe. The UN will once more tomorrow in New York try one more time to put more nails to what they hope is the coffin of the independence Ambazonians are shedding their blood for. It is a big scandal and would have the United Nations red in shame. However, the United Nations is not at its first or last scandal. They have no shame in New York and at the United Nations resident mission in Yaoundé, where they dare not challenge the position of dictator Biya. God forbid that the UN resident representative were to ruffle any feathers. God forbid that she were to put at risk the golden statue deal between Paul Biya and Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who is a specialist in the diplomacy of indifference, as thousands are slaughtered in Ambazonia. That is why Ambazonia Calling calls on all Ambazonians in the United States to do everything to be in New York on Monday afternoon to shame the United Nations for the determination they are showing at repeating another Rwanda genocide in Ambazonia. This is the monk from Ibalikumato, a Vedrukov himself for Ambazonia Calling.
Oh, freedom, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, oh yes, I know. Freedom is coming, freedom is coming, freedom is coming, oh yes, I know. 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 Oh yes, I know.
Given what happened at the DC conference and the blame game that continues to be played amongst Ambazonians with respect to what someone like Sally Boonie brought to the conference, and what was the reaction of Ambazonians in attendance at that conference, we're going to devote a little bit of time right now to review some of the excerpts from Sally Boonie before the conference and the slamming that she got from pro-independence Ambazonians who were in attendance at this conference. Here to begin is an excerpt of what Sally Boonie told that conference.
Let us consider not traumatizing and killing our population for whom each and every one here seated is fighting for. We are not passing the judgment on the people who have a struggle in their hands. We are suggesting as women that let us look at possibilities of resolving our differences and cutting down on the human lust. For at this juncture, everyone has made his or her point. We can now look for other ways to get to the ultimate goal. We therefore recommend that all factions should do all within their powers to stop hostilities so that human lives can be guaranteed. Let us exploit more options on, I don't know what to use. I don't want to say dialogue because I realize some people have a problem with dialogue. I don't want to say negotiation because some people have a problem with negotiations. But I want to say, let us have other options on how to talk, because whatever it is, we need to talk to get it done. Let us seek for non-violent ways of ending this crisis at the point where we find ourselves. We are bringing a message from GZ. Women are suffering. Our farmlands are inaccessible. Our children are dying. We are tired of bloodshed. And all factions should respect institutions like schools, hospitals, and churches. It is even against international law to attack these institutions. So it is in our own interest to leave that as a safe zone. We equally propose that a team which is largely representative, because all shades of opinion makes the whole, and gender balanced, be put in place to talk, dialogue, or negotiate for the eventual end of the crisis.
Now that was Sally Boonie before the conference in DC. The thrust was speak in generalities, but blame Ambazonians for the killings, for the ongoing war, blame them for the absence of peace. Then Sally Boonie made the pitch for which she had come to the conference, which was, as a matter of fact, we should be the ones negotiating on behalf of Ambazonians. Exactly what the United Nations is now doing for them tomorrow, Monday.
We should equally identify and employ credible independent mediators. That's what SNOD is offering. That as a women group, we can serve as mediators to try to see how we can bring everybody to talk it and let us get peace back.
The DC conference offered the first opportunity for Ambazonians working for independence to understand exactly what games these groups are planning to play. One of them, and no doubt one that SNOD, the group to which Sally Boonie belongs, the one that has been invited to sit on the panel on Monday before the United Nations, one of their goals is to get the international community out of this affair. As far as they are concerned, they want to make it a Cameroonian affair. Sally Boonie was pushing the point at the conference, insisting, according to her, that Algerians had done it.
Let us depend on ourselves to solve our own problems rather than depend on a third party to solve the crisis. Please, Algerians did it.
Those are some of the excerpts of what Sally Boonie had to say at the conference in DC. There is this insinuation out there that after Federalists or Unionists spoke at this conference, they went scot-free. Everyone was kissing up. No. Sally Boonie got royally slammed at the conference, and when we come back, we will play a few excerpts from some of those who reacted to her speech, showing you exactly how those of us in support of independence brought them on board because we wanted to get them on the train to restoration. That is when we come back.
So get on now on the train. Everybody, get on now on the train. Mothers, fathers, get on now on the train. Children, get on now on the train. Sister, brothers, get on now on the train. Husbands, wives too, get on now on the train. Oh, Abba, Father, bless us. Oh, Jesus Christus, guide us. Oh, Holy Spirit, lead us on the restoration journey of our liberty. So, restoration train is our freedom train.
Barrister Manjong Judambe was one of the first persons to take the floor after Sally Boonie had spoken at the conference. And his message shared widely by the conference was very simple. You are pointing the accusing finger at the wrong people. You should point that finger at the Biya regime for declaring war.
I sympathize with the position that she took as a woman, but there comes a time in life when enough is enough. I'm sorry to say it, but let's be honest to ourselves. The fear of blood is what got us into this position. And they know it. La République knows it. That when they shoot 2, 3, 4, we run away, and then we kick the can down the road, and then after 20 years, Those who were 4 years old become 24 years old. They pick up the fight, they shoot down 3, 4, 5, we run away. If we do that again this time, our kid, the kid who is 2 years old, when he's 20, he's going to fight this fight again. Yeah. So let's just end. Let's end this thing. Let's end this thing right now. Let's end this thing. Let's end this thing right now. And we can never talk about peace without talking about justice. Let's forget about peace. Let's go for justice. Justice is going to bring us peace. It's not the other way around. The message that you gave, man, I respect you so much. Everything you say, point your finger to Boya, not to us. We do not call this war, Boya called it. It is his war, it is his burden to stop it, or it's going to stop on our terms and not his terms.
Dr. J.J. Asungo followed in the same light, pointing out to Sally Bunyo and her group that they were making false equivalents.
I want to thank the ladies who presented from the home front. I don't want to call it Cameroon. I am also, in some sense, coming from the home front, and I'll beg to differ with them that the premise of their presentation in what I saw was trying to create a false equivalency between La République du Cameroon, the leadership, and our leadership. This war was brought on us by La République du Cameroon. It was imposed on us, and we are fighting basically to defend ourselves. And many of us have been victims. Talking about the alternatives, I agree that we may look at alternatives. One of the alternatives that is currently in place is the fact that some of you may be aware of this. We took, at least the second time, Professor Nangwe, myself, and I think 18 others in 2002, we took the Cameroon government to the court, a human rights court in Bali. So when I was in Nigeria in May last year, I saw what was happening, and I took some of the refugees who went to the Gambia and we have filed a new case, lawsuit. We were aware of it. We have filed a new lawsuit. I mean, we not take a large group, so basically it's myself and one of the refugees against La République du Cameroon, and we are calling for a number of things. I don't want to go into all the details. Yes, but those are the alternatives. We must agree with. There are various alternatives that we can use, legal and otherwise.
Addressing Sally Bunyo and her group next was Dr. Julius Taka.
I'm talking in reference to the last speakers, the ladies who came from what I don't know, Northwest and Southwest Cameroon. And I categorically would say I don't feel comfortable in their presentation by accusing us as the cause to the humanitarian crisis that is going on. I want to make that clear and for the record that is suspicious. The other speakers have already said what I was supposed to say, and I want to give back the balance of our time.
Dr. Aaron Mantra then took the floor and let it be known that the bloodshed would not prevent Ambazonians from pushing to get to Boya.
This is Dr. Aaron Mantra from Colorado, Denver, Colorado. There is no turning back. I know this bloodshed. I understand there are so many things that are wrong. We'll move forward, and I want to plead to the leadership that the Council of Elders is very essential, and that we have to move forward, forming that council, and one way to work.
One other person to take the floor, and you may recognize this voice that is free of the cold from which I'm suffering, was yours truly.
I'd like to thank the ladies, thank our mothers, our sisters, for bringing an emotional message from ground zero. All of us live in a beautiful country, those of us who live in this country. It was built on blood. It was built on justice. It is still built on justice. We will not get a country as beautiful as this one unless we are willing to pay the price. That price, unfortunately, happens to be in blood. The people of Israel quarreled Moses because he had unfortunately killed one of theirs. And now he was saying, we hang this on you. You can't lead us out. And when he let them out, they said, we've seen too much trouble out here. When the slaves lived in this country and needed freedom, people were being killed. Slaves were being hung for trying to escape. But it did not stop the struggle. It's a price we must pay. When the people of South Africa fought apartheid, it was not free. It was not a walk in the park. People were killed. If they just allowed us to go back to ground zero, we would all be there. And at some point, we are going to have to come. Because this must stop. And it must not stop on the basis of the victim being victimized anew, which is what I was hearing. The Biya government needs to know, and I would speak directly to the United Nations representative in Yaoundé, who have been mounting this stuff. Please, United Nations, man up. It is your responsibility to move those humanitarian assistance into Cameroon. You are being unable to speak to the government of Cameroon. You have been unable to send an envoy on human rights monitoring. What is wrong with the United Nations? You take a golden statue from the man and you shut up and you let people die, as you let them die in Bosnia, as you let them die in Rwanda. The reason the Holocaust went on was because no one stood up. Professor Anyangwe said yesterday, Mr. Biya's government to us is Hitler. Exactly the same. We will fight him to the gates of hell.
Thank you.
We don't do foolish, but when there are capital fools out there, we make it our duty to find them, and every week we crown one of them the Nyamfuka of the Week.
Veronique Vitumfe is here, and she's got a rundown of the kings and queens of foolish for this week.
In third place this week is a woman who, along with a group of mourners for hire and thanks to sponsorship from the United Nations and the Biya regime, have been staging lamentations. This week in Banda, Sally Bonway, who attended the DC All Southern Cameroon's conference thanks to sponsorship of the regime, instead of just crying for the collapse of the Biya regime, keeps pretending she cares for Ambazonians. On Friday, she mobilized and transported into Bamenda the women who were seen in comedy with Biya's first slave in the colonial government. The professional mourner who has been rehearsing how to mourn Biya when his regime collapses, Sally Bonway, who has chosen to keep her hair completely shaved off as traditional mourners do, is this week's third place finisher for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week.
Nyamfuka them all.
Finishing in second place is one of the chiefs from the Southern Zone who is living in Minnesota, USA. This week, with no real responsibilities over anyone in Ambazonia, the so-called chief contradicted real chiefs who are doing work on ground zero by siding with the colonial governor of Paul Biya, the dog catcher called Bernard Okalabilai. Dr. Robert Endeli, the based in exile paramount chief of BOYO, pledged to act in what he called the supreme interest shared by the majority of Cameroonians of goodwill. It has never occurred to us on this program to nominate a traditional ruler to this award. But when a chief chooses to put himself in the shoes of his royal stupidness, how can we avoid naming Chief Robert Endeli, the royal runner-up for the crown of shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week?
Nyamfuka them all.
He was recently decreed the first of the house slaves in colonial administration of Paul Biya. Since Friday morning, the so-called Prime Minister of colonial Cameroon accepted the escort of several battalions of the terrorist forces of Biya to visit Ambazonia. He came with Biya's fleet of armored vehicles, chariots and charioteers, and even closely guarded, could only afford a lightning tour of Ambazonia. To make the whole charade look like success, Dr. Chief Dion Gute could not hesitate to hire crowds and bus them in from the University of Chang and nearby villages of West Cameroon. And as if anyone in Ambazonia cared who his father was, Dr. Chief Dion Gute had the audacity to call the monster Paul Biya Papa. While Papa is several grades below the creator of Famindongo, Dr. Chief Dion Gute is this week's winner of the Crown of Shame, the Nyamfuka of the Week.
Nyamfuka them all.
This is Veronique Vetimfe for Ambazonia Calling.
Let me put in a word here. I think one person managed to escape the dishonorable mention in Nyamfuka of the Week this week.
Have to tell the whole world that what Ayabacho is doing, extorting money from Southern Cameroonians, telling people that they are fighting war. There is no war. They are fighting for Paul Biya. They are all La Republic agents. They have taken money from Atanganji and they are about to bring a massacre in Bui Division. The Bui warriors are doing a great job. They are only, I think there are only some 3 ADF in Bui Division.
Did you just say 3 ADF fighters?
There are only, I think there are only some 3 ADF in Bui Division. Though they are the ones that are causing alarm, and they are the people that made the army to come and invade Meluf.
It is a case that's so important that I think I need to just raise it here.
I am Laurentia. Quote me. I am MANYU Laurentia.
The lady who was fanning the flames of tribalism.
I call on all the sons and daughters of Bui to come out and denounce this Ayabacho Lugat and his group. Those ritualists that you have seen that they want to finish our people in Kumbu, it will not work.
She blames the ADF apparently for the detention of her father in 2013.
In 2013, I made a video here to expose these people because they sent my dad in prison. And there are 6 other people still in prison. Stephen is still there. Stephen is the only man that is still there in prison. And nobody talks about them.
I mean, whatever pain came with your father's detention, we sympathize. But the tribalism?
All the Nsọ people, all the Kumbu people, you people should come out and denounce this. All your fingers must be out from Bui Division. All of you people have to go out from Bui Division. I am Laurentia. Quote me. I am MANYU Laurentia.
This performance, like others, did not make the cut for Nyamfuka of the Week this week. But whoever puts up this kind of show should be ashamed of themselves. Very few model African heads of states exist, so generally anyone who leaves power tends to become one, and Kenneth Kaunda has grown in importance ever since he retired. This week was his anniversary. Here's Tanyi Judagwa again.
This is the Vine. This is the Vine. 95th.
Choristers bring happy birthday wishes on Friday to Zambia's founder, President Kenneth Kaunda, alias KK, on the occasion of his 95th birthday.
Oh, yeah.
The video is a beauty. It shows Kenneth Kaunda walking out of his retirement home to meet the well-wishers, headed by a staff and a staff.
Oh, yeah, here we go. Oh. Come on, huh? Come now. Hey.
Halfway to the choristers, the old man waving a white handkerchief breaks into the typical Zulu dance in perfect rhythm, despite the visible weight of years on one of Africa's greatest of the great who lost elections and gracefully bowed out of power in 1991 into the bliss of a well-deserved retirement, now in its 27 years.
Oh, beautiful.
Ambazonia Calling and the brave people of Ambazonia wish Kenneth Kaunda a very happy 95th birthday.
Ah, yeah.
He's a friend who really
Ah, yeah.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Because you have your army of occupation out in West Cameroon, you believe that when the people will rise, even if you took the whole of the French army and added to yours, you will never bring them down.
And I call on all Cameroon soldiers to lay down their arms within Ambazonia and to turn their arms against the very system that has made them slaves in the land of their birth.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, what exactly is happening at the Nkunkuma Palace in Gola? Are you still there, or did you abdicate, as rumor has it? Could you share a forwarding address, please? I tried that Continental Hotel in Geneva and was told they've not seen you there now for several months. They said moons even. I tried sending the letter to the palace in Vomuka village, only to be told you do not answer the doorbell there. As for the palace which Grand Camarade built in Gola, I hear you dropped off permanent right of signature to a certain twat called Ngongo. Is it Ferdinand or is it Fignan? Whatever. How can you just disappear, vanish from existence, vanish from the Intercontinental? Not even acknowledge receipt of any of my weekly letters. Are you that primitive? Can't you just write back? Could you not just put the thing back in the post office, back to sender, for instance? Couldn't you just tell me you're no longer reachable? Couldn't you just say you're not friends with an Ambazozo anymore? The reason I was trying to reach you was I was just concerned. I wanted to know what happened for baby Brenda not to be, the crown princess anymore. What happened to Prince Frank? That Ngongo Ferdinand now, excuse my French, Ngongo Ferdinand now has become the guy who takes over the succession. Someone said it was the power of your MANYU pulling all the strings for the new mafia from Akonolinga. All those concerns of succession with no one mentioning the Wajos is not making them very happy. You can ask Chiroma. They are angry as hell. They were expecting you to return the lift to them, especially given that the Ambazozos are leaving and you have decided you want to condemn the Bamilekes to the Tongtin, not to the palace. What is even more confusing for the bread and sardine, crayfish and janga people is all these signals that you're sending. You send John Gute up country to Abakwatong, and then you send him down to K-Town. He's swinging around and talking about dialogue and discussing everything except the real thing. What do you want? Either we talk separation or we are separated already. I mean, what the heck? Why discuss what we don't want to discuss? Who told you we're interested in talking other topics? The divorce is divorce. You move on. Now, I can't even understand why you're mentioning dialogue. That stuff is dead on arrival. We may negotiate the terms of separation if we don't win you in war. Definitely you know you can't win the war. So don't send us stuff that's dead on arrival. Also, what happened to you acting really tough? I thought you were the guy who was going to win the war, who was going to move in the B, who was going to make sure that the people of Ambazonia come crawling on their bellies and on their knees. We will not even discuss the form of the state. What happened to all of that tough talk? All of a sudden there's a problem? I thought Atanganji said there was none. When did the memo change? We didn't get it, eh? Well, if Ngongo is the one who convinced you to send John Gute, or it was John Gute who convinced Ngongo to come, or it was whoever, I know you're not active, so I will not put this on you. And I also noticed, Joshua, every time you're staring defeat in the face, you become so good-mannered, so good-natured, so good-humored. You send John Gute to go by and see the fun of MENCHUM. I mean, the man is the first vice president of your thing. They chop people their money. How come you could not talk to the man until you're talking separation? Or was it dialogue? Well, whatever you want to discuss with him and Fon Mukete, please do. There's a new generation in town, the never again generation, and we're going to a new place. And you can't stop us, Joshua. So go drink the sea if you want.
From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer is Jeff McCoy. Our music today is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato, William Ford, an ambassador of blessed memory, Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and Prince Ajua Alemanji of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at www.themissionstribune.com, www.compassfreepress.com, and www.africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.